Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a new real-life car review. This episode I'm driving the Nissan Qashqai with the all-new e-powered drivetrain. The Nissan Qashqai was unveiled in 2006 as the successor of the Nissan Almera. From the get-go, the Qashqai was a huge sales success, with annual sales in Europe easily exceeding 200,000 units, while Nissan aimed for 100,000 units per year. The second generation was revealed in 2013, and in the meantime many competitors had picked up on the success of the compact crossover and wanted a share of this market segment. But despite the introduction of several competing models, the Qashqai kept leading the sales with a peak of 247,000 cars in 2017. The current and third generation was introduced in 2021. There is a lot of revolutionary stuff going on under the hood. In the first place, it's an engine with variable compression, which always has been the holy grail of engine development, together with compression ignition. Mazda was the first to have that one in the Sky Active X engines. So, variable compression, it's a 3-cylinder, 1.5 liter engine. This technology, the variable compression technology, was first introduced in the Infiniti QX50. That was only on sale in the States and maybe currently is. That's a 2-liter version of this, and this 3-cylinder version is basically the same engine with 1 cylinder chopped off. I'll go into the details of the variable compression technology and the lower end of this engine later on in this video. That's revolutionary. And what's also very special, and I think is revolutionary too, is the e-powered drivetrain. The Nissan Note e-Power is the best-selling car in Japan, and for good reasons. It consists of a generator which is directly connected to the crankshaft, and a large electric motor, just a normal EV motor. You have to drive the car. There is no mechanical connection between the generator and the electric motor. In that respect, it's different from, for instance, the Mitsubishi PHEV engines, which go in a price direct or direct drive at highway speeds. This one does not have that. What this does have is an almost 2 kilowatt-hour battery that sits in the trunk, or at least underneath the trunk floor, behind the rear axle. As I said, with almost 2 kilowatts, I believe it's 1.97 kilowatt hours. It's a very small battery, but it allows the car to drive in pure EV mode, but only at lower speeds. So, how do we have to see this? Is this another variation of a hybrid powertrain, like the Toyota Hybrid Synergy Drive? Is it an electric car with a gas generator attached to it, or is it just a gasoline engine with a very special transmission? Well, that's what we are here for to find out in this episode. The variable compression technology looks complicated because of the added mechanism in the bottom end of the engine. The VC mechanism revolves around the multi-link. This allows to change the position of the connecting rod in relation to the crankshaft. The big end of the connecting rod is not attached to the connecting rod, but to the multi-link. The multi-link has 3 connection points, one for the connecting rod, one for the crank journal, and one for the adjuster of the multi-link. This adjuster, number 6 in the picture, is connected to an excenter, number 7, which in turn is rotated by the S-arm, number 8, and the actuator, number 9. Now, to make the explanation simple, when the actuator, number 9, rotates 90 degrees, the linkage from number 5 to number 8 changes position. And what it basically does is changing the position of the piston in the cylinder. In lean mode, the piston travels on higher positions in the cylinder, with a smaller combustion chamber in the top dead center, causing a higher compression ratio, in this case 14:1. In power mode, the piston travels on lower positions in the cylinder. The compression ratio in this mode is 8:1. Now, this is a slow animation of VC in action, and you can see the change of piston travel when the actuator turns 90 degrees. The actuator is in the lower right corner of this animation. There are 4 important things to notice here. Number 1 is there are only 2 extra moving parts during the engine cycle, and that are the multi-link and the adjuster arm. And number 2, when you look at the adjuster arm, it only has a small travel back and forth in its oscillating movement when the crankshaft is rotating. 3, the cylinder bores and the crankshaft axis have a huge offset. And 4, this is the most important one, the big end of the connecting rod makes a non-circular motion. The connecting rod travels straight down during the downward stroke, and this gives loads and loads of torque. I'll leave a link in the description to an in-depth article I wrote for my website. Get into the interior and having a look at this. The first thing to note of the interior of the 3rd generation Qashqai, that it's very roomy. The door panels are fairly flat. That gives you a lot of space in width. There's a quite wide center console, but all in all, when you look at this segment of the dashboard, this stack of the center console, it isn't pointed towards me. It's very flat and it's very roomy. That's the first thing to note. In front of me I have a 12.5-inch digital gauge cluster. That's in the higher trim levels, and also there is this 12.5-inch infotainment screen. The lower trim levels get the 8-inch infotainment screen, and I kind of like it better. It's the same screen I had in the Nissan Juke Hybrid, and the thing I like about that system is that it has a second rotary knob with push to select functions, and it's easier to use while driving when you're changing radio stations and all. This is all touchscreen, and you have to have your hand on top of the screen to select either navigation or the radio or the home screen. Climate control, all physical buttons, I like that. You can operate this by muscle memory. This is a Tecna with the additional cool pack, and the cool pack adds a heated steering wheel, heated front seats and a heated windscreen. The materials in this interior are very plain and very honest. There is this nice leather-like material. I think that's part of the design pack that's on this car. I have a nice leather-wrapped steering wheel that isn't too thick. It's nice to hold on to. And all those panels here, for instance around the shift selector, the gear selector, and this panel over here in the dashboard, which is also on the doors here, it's just plain plastic, but it has a nice grain to it. It doesn't pretend to be anything other than it isn't. You can see it's plastic, but it has a nice look to it. There's only a small amount of high gloss plastics that's on this segment here, and it's tilted upwards, so I see the reflection of the sky in there, but I also can see my fingerprints. It would be nice if they had used another or a matte material to that, and also this large screen here, of course, you'll see the fingerprints. This trim level also comes with a parking pack to allow for automatic parking, but you don't really need it. The upper trim levels get the around view monitor, which allow a nice view around the car, and it makes it very easy to park. I heard a lot of complaints about cars in this market segment that they all look the same. The design is cookie cutter, but it's different for the Qashqai, I think. One thing Nissan has done really well is to keep the shoulder line very low, so you get very high windows in the car. And that's great for the view towards the outside. That's something we'll see when we hop into the back. You open up the window. I'm set behind myself. Now I'm not the tallest. I have to note I can't put my feet underneath the driver's seat. That's because I'm set fairly low, but as you can see there's plenty of leg room. And with this optional panoramic sunroof that doesn't open, but it's a large glass roof, the roof comes down a little bit, so I have about 3 centimeters, 1.5 inches of headroom. Now when I close the door, you'll see, well, the window doesn't sink in entirely, but there's a lot of visibility towards the outside. And that's really great when you have smaller children. Now, of course, no car review is complete without having a peek in the trunk. As you can see, it has an electric boot lid. As a first aid kit comes with the car. It has a double trunk floor. You can raise this one to hold your grocery crates in place. And underneath here is a tire repair kit. The electric battery lives underneath here, underneath the trunk floor, in between the rear axles or in between the rear wheels, so it doesn't take up any trunk space. Let's get this back in and go for a drive. Okay, folks, let's go for a drive. It's getting warmer here. Put the air conditioning on. Alrighty, off we go. Basically, this drivetrain, this e-power drivetrain, is a pure EV drivetrain. So The electric motor does all the driving. As I said, there is no electrical connection. Also has to drive the car at higher speeds, up to its top speed of 170 kilometers an hour. So that means that the electric motor really is powerful. It's really smooth, and you can tell when you're driving at lower speeds and driving off from a standstill, everything is very smooth and very seamless. When I first drove the Qashqai during the press launch in 2021, I noticed how incredibly quiet this car is. And that's one of the key features, one of the great positives of this car, that it's very quiet. Now, until recently, there were only two engine options available. Both were basically the same 1.3 engine. That was a co-development of Renault and Nissan. That engine was available in a 140 horsepower version and 158 version horsepower. So basically there's only 18 horsepower separating those two engines. And the most powerful of that one is available with the Xtronic CVT transmission. There are no four-wheel drive options for the current generation of Qashqai, or at least not over here in the Netherlands. So I talked about the technology of the variable compression engine and the e-power drivetrain. Now it's time to find out how this thing drives in real life. How does it perform? What's it like to live with? And of course, what are the fuel consumption numbers? Coming to a stop here. It's a very sunny day. Good time to switch glasses. Prices for this Qashqai start about 36,500 euros for the base Visia model. The e-power drivetrain is only visible from the N connector trim level, then followed by the Tecna, which is this car, and the Tecna Plus, which is the highest trim level. This one costs 47.5, round and about. There are some optional packages to this car. I'll blink in the as tested price here. And there's the Tecna Plus, which costs almost 51,000, and you can upgrade it with some extra packages to almost 52,000 euros. The first thing you'll notice when you start driving the e-power, that it is even more quiet than both other engine options. What's most noteworthy is that the acceleration is very linear. If you're under hard acceleration, or what I'm doing now, I'm following a truck, a milk hauler. Now in the lower speed range, say below highway speed, I think an electric motor is always superior to an internal combustion engine. Once you're up to highway speeds, you want to accelerate, and that speed range, the combustion engine is superior in my opinion. And this car really combines the best of both worlds. I noticed I'm currently driving at on a road with a speed limit of 80 kilometers an hour, and I always find myself driving faster than that, not even a little faster, but I'll easily go 100 kilometers an hour. And the reason for that is that this car is very, very quiet. It had a very smooth ride, and even though this has the 19-inch wheels, which would normally affect the roll-off comfort of the car and the suspension, in this car it doesn't affect it that much. The first day I drove this car, I had a 6-hour drive ahead of me. A lot of highway driving, rush hour traffic. When I arrived, I wasn't exhausted at all, and that tells you something about how comfortable this car actually is. If only the seats were a bit softer and the suspension, the springs especially, were a bit softer, it would come into Lexus territory. If the seats had a bit more padding, some thicker and softer bolsters, I think we would be at Lexus levels. I had to pass some construction traffic, and it's seamless, it's smooth. Just a little push of the gas pedal and off we go. The car has 3 drive modes, and the same with the Nissan Juke. Once you flick into sport mode, the car, I wouldn't say really hauls, but it's quick. It's very smooth. Now on to the engine itself. It's revolutionary technology. I like that, but I can't really tell anything about the engine characteristics. It's all controlled. It's all behind software. There's no direct connection between the gas pedal and the engine itself. It's all done software-wise. But I can tell you this, the engine itself is very quiet. It's only audible in the background, only under hard acceleration, when the power gauge passes the 50% mark, you can hear the engine rev up. But during normal driving, like I'm doing now, I know that the engine is running, but I can't hear it. Sometimes you can hear a faint noise in the background, and at first I thought it was a fan, that some little lever or something was stuck in the interior fan. But then it occurred to me it was the engine, so that's what you hear of this engine. It is very quiet. The benefit of having variable compression is that you can have your engine run at the output rating you need. So normally when you have a gas generator, it either idles or it runs at maybe 2 operating speeds. But having this variable compression engine, well, you can adjust the engine to exact the power output you need, and that's what it does in this car. Now, I recently saw the video of Savage Geese where they tested the Nissan Altima with a 2-liter version of this engine, and they said, yeah, well, they developed this variable compression technology to avoid hybridization. But here we are. We have the 3-cylinder version of that engine, made it to an e-power transmission, and we have a full-blown hybrid. And it works really well. Okay, let's head out on a highway and wrap up this drive segment. Then a short merge lane over here, full on the throttle. And there is 100 again. As you can see, I'm following a truck over here. Cruise control is slowing down to 90. Now it accelerates. But now we're already at speed, and usually these accelerations during overtaking take a little bit longer. But the accelerations are so linear and so smooth that I often think, hey, why does it stop accelerating? But then we already reached the set speed. That's very good. And still, when you hear the engine run during acceleration, it's just a faint noise in the background. So the balancing and the noise characteristics of the variable compression engine are very good. Now, this engine has no balancing shafts, and I think that the mechanism that adjusts the variable compression also has its benefits in balancing the engine, because the engine is very smooth. Now you can smooth out a 3-cylinder to it's almost like a V8, so to speak. Of course, there is a slight vibration at certain engine speeds, but the engine balancing, the engine noise, the noise characteristics, and the liveliness of this engine are just very good. This really is an improvement over traditional engines. Well, folks, as per usual, we're in the middle of nowhere, and as you may have noticed during the driving segment, my nose got clogged up, and I keep wearing the sunglasses because pollen season hit on me. So anyway, what are my thoughts on the e-power drivetrain in the new Nissan Qashqai? So, should you choose the e-power drivetrain for your Nissan Qashqai? Now, there's one very important thing to note about the 3rd generation Qashqai, and that it is a very comfortable, very quiet car in itself, no matter which engine option you choose. Given that fact, the e-power drivetrain really adds to that. Even though it has a lower top speed, it has a lower towing capacity, it doesn't make any more power than the most powerful 1.3 hybrid, but all in all, you can tell where your money is spent, and that's in a very, very smooth drive. It's very quiet, accelerations are very smooth, and if need be, it can be a very fast, quick car. I'm convinced this is a good drivetrain, and it's a very good option, and I can understand why Nissan has introduced this as a top-of-the-range engine option for the Nissan Qashqai. Okay, it's almost 50,000 euro that's standing here, and it's on sale for 45,000 euros, a bit more. That's a lot of money, but you can really tell where the extra money is spent, even though in practical terms it is less practical than the 1.3 hybrid. To the point of fuel economy, the big differentiator in that respect is driving at highway speeds or below highway speeds. When you're driving highway speeds, this fuel economy is just slightly better than the mild hybrids, but anything below 100 or below 80 kilometers an hour, the fuel economy gets great. On average, I did 6 liters per 100 kilometers. On highway speeds, that was approaching the 6.7 figure, and anything below 80 kilometers an hour, I got a very decent 5.5 liters per 100 kilometer. So fuel economy is really good. So if you don't tow a trailer or caravan on a regular basis and you only need a tow hook for a bike carrier and you want a lot of approachable, usable technology, this is the car to have with this drivetrain. With that being said, I would like to thank you for watching this real-life car review. If you liked what you see, please subscribe to the channel and give me a like. Leave a comment if you have any questions. And if you would like to help support the channel, you can buy me a coffee. I'll leave the link down below in the description. And for now, I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye!